Lena crouched behind a stack of rusted cargo crates in the belly of the derelict freighter, orbiting the dead moon of Kessar. Her breath came in short, quiet bursts. The ship groaned around her like a dying beast, its metal bones creaking under the strain of forgotten years. She had come alone against every rule in the scavenger's code drawn by rumors of a high-value prisoner held in the old Imperial detention block. Most said it was a trap. Lena said it was worth the risk. She adjusted the thermal goggles strapped to her head. The hallway ahead shimmered in shades of blue and red. 2 guards stood outside a reinforced cell door, their bulky forms radiating heat. They wore the jagged armor of the Jiran Empire. Though the insignias were faded, the plating cracked. This ship had been abandoned for years. Yet someone had left these 2 behind like watchdogs chained to a ghost. Lena had spent the last 6 months tracking whispers across the outer rim. Stories of a lone woman pale as moonlight with eyes like liquid silver held in stasis aboard a forgotten vessel. Some said she was a scientist. Others claimed she was a rebel leader. Lena didn't care. She needed credits and a live alien fetches more than scrap metal. She waited until the guards shifted their weight bored and sluggish. Then she moved. Silent as shadow, she slipped from cover, her worn boots making no sound on the grated floor. She palmed a small sonic disruptor from her belt and pressed it against the wall beside the first guard. A soft hum barely audible, and the man stiffened, eyes rolling back before he crumpled. The second guard turned just in time to see her. She struck fast, a pressure point jab to the neck, and he dropped like a sack of grain. The cell door hissed open with a manual override she'd jury-rigged from spare parts. Inside, the air was cold and still. In the center of the room, suspended in a faint blue energy field, floated a woman. She was unlike anything Lena had ever seen. Tall and slender, with skin like polished pearl and long hair the color of midnight smoke. Her ears tapered to delicate points, and her fingers were long and graceful, curled gently at her sides. She wore a simple white tunic torn at the hem, and around her neck hung a pendant shaped like a coiled serpent, biting its own tail. Lena deactivated the stasis field. The woman dropped an inch and gasped, her silver eyes snapping open. They locked onto Lena with startling clarity. "You freed me," the woman said. Her voice was soft but carried the weight of command. Lena nodded, hand still on her blaster. "I did. Name's Lena." The woman straightened, brushing invisible dust from her tunic. "My name is Lyra." Lena gestured toward the door. "We don't have time for introductions." More guards could be on the way. "Let's move." Lyra followed without protest, her bare feet silent on the metal floor. She moved with unnatural grace, as if gravity barely touched her. Lena led her through the maze of corridors, heart pounding with every distant clang or hum of machinery. They reached the escape pod bay, where Lena's battered skiff waited tethered to the freighter's hull. Once inside the cramped cockpit, Lena powered up the engines. The skiff shuddered to life, its thrusters spitting blue flame. She punched in coordinates for the nearest neutral port Viridian station, 3 jumps away. "You're not what I expected," Lyra said, watching the stars blur past the viewport. Lena glanced at her. "And what did you expect, a soldier? A mercenary? Not a scavenger with grease on her hands and kindness in her eyes?" Lena snorted. "Kindness doesn't pay the bills. I'm taking you to Viridian. From there you're on your own. Unless you've got credits." Lyra smiled faintly. "I have something better." Over the next 2 days, as they drifted through silent space, Lyra spoke little. She sat by the window watching the void, her expression unreadable. Lena tried to ignore her, focusing on repairs and rationing their food. But the woman's presence filled the small ship like a quiet storm. On the 3rd day, as they approached the Viridian jump point, alarms blared. Lena's console lit up with red warnings. 3 Imperial cruisers had dropped out of warp directly ahead, blocking their path. Lena cursed under her breath. "How did they find us?" Lyra stood slowly. "They didn't find us. They found me." Before Lena could respond, a voice crackled over the comm. "This is Admiral Vorlak of the Jiran Imperial Fleet. Surrender the fugitive Lyra Voss immediately, or your vessel will be destroyed." Lena's blood ran cold. Voss. The Imperial bloodline. The ruling dynasty of the Jiran Empire. She turned to Lyra, eyes wide. "You're not just a prisoner. You're the heir." Lyra met her gaze. "I am Lyra Voss, daughter of Emperor Kale Voss. I was imprisoned by my uncle after he staged a coup. He fears my claim to the throne." Lena's mind raced. She had just broken the most wanted person in the galaxy out of Imperial custody. If they caught her now, she'd be spaced without trial. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because you would have left me there," Lyra said simply. "And I needed someone who didn't know my name to see me as a person, not a prize." Lena stared at the approaching warships. 3 against 1. No chance unless... She turned to Lyra. Do you still have that pendant? Lyra touched it. It's the Imperial Sigil, a symbol of my right to rule. Good. Then use it. Lena opened a channel to the lead cruiser. This is Lena Cruz of the independent vessel Starling. I have Lyra Voss aboard, but she's not a fugitive. She's your rightful empress. Silence followed. Then a new voice came through, older, steadier. This is General Oren. Prove it. Lyra stepped forward, holding the pendant up to the comm cam. By the blood of Cale Voss and the oath of the Serpent Crown, I call upon the loyalty of the Imperial Guard. My uncle's reign is illegitimate. Stand with me or stand against the Empire itself. A long pause. Then the 3 cruisers powered down their weapons. General Oren's voice returned thick with emotion. Hail Empress Lyra. Lena let out a breath she didn't know she was holding. The ships formed an escort around the tiny skiff there, massive hulls shielding her like a mother bird. Later, aboard the flagship, Lyra stood on the command deck in fresh robes of deep violet, the Imperial sigil gleaming on her chest. Officers bowed as she passed. She looked every inch the ruler now, but when she saw Lena waiting near the airlock, her expression softened. You don't have to leave, Lyra said. Lena shook her head. I'm a scavenger, not a courtier. Besides, someone's got to keep the outer rim honest. Lyra stepped closer. You risked everything for a stranger. That makes you more than a scavenger. It makes you a friend. She pressed a small data chip into Lena's hand. Inside is a royal pardon and enough credits to buy your own fleet. And if you ever need me, send a signal. I'll come. Lena tucked the chip into her jacket. I'll hold you to that. As her skiff pulled away from the flagship, Lena watched the Imperial Armada shrink in the distance. She had gone looking for scrap and found a queen, and maybe, just maybe, a little piece of hope. Back in the cockpit, she set a new course, not toward Viridian, but deeper into the unknown. The galaxy was bigger than she'd thought, and so was her future. She smiled alone, but not lonely, and flew on. The Starling cut through the amber haze of the Vega Nebula, its engines purring like a contented cat. Lena had taken to flying slower now. Not because she feared what lay ahead, but because she liked the quiet. The galaxy had changed since Lyra took the throne. Trade routes reopened. Old enemies signed truces. Even the outer rim felt safer. But Lena knew peace was fragile. It needed tending like a flame in the wind. She was hauling rare isotopes from a mining colony when the distress signal came. Not a broadcast. Not a plea. Just 3 pulses on a dead frequency. Imperial code. Lyra's code. Lena didn't hesitate. She rerouted mid-flight, punched the thrusters, and burned hard toward the source. The signal led her to a forgotten system near the rim of the Silent Zone, a place where no ship dared go. Legends said the stars there had gone quiet, not dead, just listening. She found the wreckage drifting in a slow orbit around a blackened planet. It was an Imperial courier ship torn open like a gutted fish. Life signs flickered weakly inside. Lena docked with care, her blaster ready. The interior was dark smoke still curling from melted consoles. She found Lyra in the command chair, strapped in but unconscious. Blood streaked her temple. Her silver eyes closed. Lena's chest tightened. She checked her pulse, strong but fast. Feverish. Lena carried her to the Starling, wrapped her in thermal blankets, and injected a broad-spectrum antiviral from her med kit. For 2 days, Lyra burned with fever, muttering in Geran tongues. Once she grabbed Lena's wrist and whispered the serpent wakes. Lena didn't sleep. She watched the stars and waited. On the 3rd morning, Lyra opened her eyes clear and sharp. You came, always. Lyra sat up slowly, wincing. They ambushed us. A faction within the Imperial Council. They don't want peace. They want control. They poisoned the ship's air with a neural toxin. I barely got the distress out. Who's Nader Varric? My uncle's old ally. He hides behind laws and speeches, but his hands are still bloody. Lena handed her water. What did they take my access codes? The master key to the Imperial vaults. Not credits. Not weapons. The archives. Every treaty, every secret, every truth the Empire has buried for centuries. And they'll leak it all. Chaos will follow. People will turn on each other. The peace will shatter. Lena nodded. So we stopped them. We're outgunned. Outmanned. And I'm a fugitive again in the eyes of many. Not to me. Lyra looked at her, then really looked. You keep saving me, Lena Cruz. You keep being worth saving. They plotted in the dim light of the cockpit. Varric would go to the vaults on Kessar Prime, the old capital. He'd use Lyra's stolen codes to open the central archive and broadcast its contents across every network in known space. They had less than 48 hours. Lena contacted Claire, the scientist she'd rescued months before. Claire now ran a research outpost near Kesser Prime. She agreed to help. Her team had been studying the planet's old defense grid. It was offline but not dead. "We can trigger a localized pulse," she said over comms. "It'll knock out all comms and data relays for 10 minutes. Enough time to get inside if you move fast." "Good enough," Lena said. They landed on Kesser Prime under cover of a sandstorm. The capital city sprawled beneath them, silent and brooding. The archive stood at its heart, a towering spire of black stone shaped like a coiled serpent. Imperial guards patrolled, but their loyalty was split. Some still wore Varek's colors. Lena wore a stolen guard uniform. Lyra kept her hood low, her face hidden. They slipped through service tunnels beneath the city, the air thick with dust and memory. The vault entrance was sealed with biometric locks keyed to Lyra's bloodline. "I can open it," Lena said, holding up a vial of Lyra's blood she'd drawn during the fever. "Fresh enough." The lock hissed open. Inside, the archive stretched into darkness, shelves of crystalline data rods humming with stored history. At the center stood the broadcast terminal, a massive console glowing faintly red. Varek was already there, flanked by 4 armed enforcers. He turned as they entered, his face twisted in triumph. "Empress, you should be dead. I keep disappointing people like you," Lyra said, stepping forward. Varek sneered. "Your mercy is weakness. The galaxy needs strength. Order. Not fairy tales of unity. Order built on lies isn't order. It's fear." He raised his hand. "Kill them." The enforcers fired. Lena shoved Lyra behind a console and returned fire. Plasma bolts lit the chamber. One enforcer fell, then another. But the last 2 were good, too good. Lena took a hit to the shoulder, cried out, but kept shooting. One went down. The other lunged at Lyra. Lyra didn't flinch. She spoke a single word in the old tongue. The data rods around them flared blue. Energy arced through the air. The enforcer froze mid-stride, then collapsed, twitching. Varek stared. "You awakened the archive's defense. It remembers its true master." He backed toward the terminal. "Then I'll send it all now." He slammed his hand on the console. Alarms blared. The broadcast began. But Claire's voice crackled over Lena's earpiece. "Pulse activated. Systems down in 3, 2, 1. The lights died. The console went dark. Silence." Varek screamed in rage. "You think this changes anything? The truth is out there now. People will learn what the Empire really is." Lyra walked toward him, calm as dawn. "No. They'll learn what we choose to show them." She turned to Lena. "Help me reboot the system. Clean version. Only the truths that heal, not hurt." Together they worked. Lena rerouted power while Lyra accessed the core. Within minutes, the archive hummed back to life, but now under Lyra's full command. She didn't delete the dark chapters. She framed them. Added context. Showed the lessons learned, the lives lost, the promises made to never repeat the past. Then she broadcasted herself. Not as a weapon, but as a confession. As an invitation. "I am Lyra Voss, Empress of the Jaran Empire. These are our sins. These are our hopes. Judge us not by what we hid, but by what we choose to become." The galaxy watched, and for the first time many saw not an empire, but a people trying. Varek was taken away, silent and broken, not executed. Imprisoned. Given the same chance he denied others. Afterward, on the roof of the archive as the twin suns set, Lyra stood beside Lena. "You didn't have to come back. I didn't come back for the Empire. I came back for you." Lyra smiled. "Stay this time. Not as a guest. Not as a hero. As my advisor. My voice from the rim. The Empire needs eyes that see beyond palaces." Lena looked out over the city lights flickering to life. "I'd have to wear proper shoes. Only on formal days." Lena laughed. "Then maybe." They stood in silence as the stars emerged one by one, the serpent spire behind them no longer a tomb of secrets but a beacon. Lena thought of her old life, scavenging wrecks, eating cold rations, sleeping with one eye open. She hadn't known she was lonely until someone showed her what connection felt like. Lyra touched her arm lightly. "You belong here, Lena. Not because I say so. Because you've earned it." Lena didn't answer with words. She just stood a little closer. The next morning, the Starling sat on the landing pad ready to go, but its pilot didn't board. Instead, Lena walked toward the Imperial Palace, a small bag over her shoulder. Her boots scuffed, but her step sure. Inside, they gave her an office with a window that faced the stars. On her desk, they placed a comm unit linked directly to the Empress, and a single note in Lyra's handwriting. "Thank you for believing in us before we deserved it." Weeks passed. Lena met with traders, miners, refugees. She listened. She argued. She changed policies. She kept her blaster but used it only once to scare off a bureaucrat who tried to silence a farmer's complaint. The galaxy didn't fix itself overnight, but it tried, and so did she. One evening, Lyra found her on the palace balcony watching a fleet of civilian ships depart for new colonies. "Safe now, protected. You look tired," Lena said. "I am, but it's a good tired, like fixing an old engine exactly." They stood side by side, the wind tugging at their clothes. No titles, no thrones, just two women who had faced the dark and chosen to light a candle instead. Lena thought about the girl she'd been hiding in derelict ships, stealing to survive. She'd never imagined this. Not the palace, not the purpose, not the quiet joy of knowing someone had your back no matter what. "You ever miss the old days?" Lyra asked sometimes, but not enough to go back. "Good. Because I'd chase you down again." Lena smiled. "I know." The stars above burned steady and bright. The future wasn't written yet. But for the first time it felt like theirs to shape. Together. Months passed like starlight slipping through fingers. Lena Cruz drifted through the outer rim in her patched-up skiff, the starling humming softly as it cut through the void. The credits Lyra had given her bought new parts, better shields, and a quiet reputation. Traders whispered she was the one who walked out of an imperial trap with a queen's blessing. Some called her lucky. Others called her dangerous. Lena called herself free. But freedom grew thin in the silence. The starling felt too big now, too empty. She missed the weight of another voice in the cockpit, the quiet hum of someone else's thoughts. She told herself it was foolish. She was a scavenger, not a courtier, not a hero. Yet every time she passed a news relay, the Jaran Empire flickered across the screen. Lyra's face appeared often calm, resolute, standing before fleets and councils rebuilding what her uncle had broken. The Empire was changing. Not through war, but through law, through mercy, through something that looked like hope. Lena tried not to watch, but she always did. One evening near the edge of the Helios drift, a distress call crackled over the comm, weak, broken, but urgent. It wasn't Imperial. It wasn't pirate. It was civilian. A small science vessel. The Orion Bloom had been attacked by raiders and was adrift with life support failing. Lena hesitated. Helping meant delay, meant risk. But the voice on the line sounded young, scared. It reminded her of herself years ago, lost and alone in the dark. She changed course. The Orion Bloom was a ghost of a ship, half its hull scorched black. Lena docked carefully and stepped inside. The corridors were cold air thin. She found the crew in the medbay, 3 humans and 1 alien. A tall, thin being with iridescent skin and 6 slender arms. They were huddled around a flickering heater. All alive. All grateful. Their leader, a woman named Claire, thanked her with tears in her eyes. "We were mapping deep space anomalies," she explained. "The raiders wanted our data core. They took it and left us to die." Lena frowned. "What kind of data?" Claire glanced at her companion. The alien, who nodded slowly. "Gravitational echoes. Signs of something ancient buried near the Kessar belt." Lena's blood chilled. Kessar. Where she'd found Lyra. That night, as the rescued crew slept, Lena studied the partial logs Claire had salvaged. Fragments of coordinates patterns that didn't match any known celestial body. And one phrase repeated like a prayer. "The heart of the First Empire." She knew that phrase. Lyra had whispered it once during their flight to Viridian, half asleep, half dreaming. It was an old Zaran myth. A weapon or a tomb or a throne hidden before the stars had names. By dawn, Lena made her choice. She couldn't ignore this. Not when it tied back to Lyra. Not when it might threaten the fragile peace the new Empress had built. She contacted the nearest Imperial outpost using a coded frequency Lyra had given her. The signal bounced through layers of encryption before a familiar voice answered. "Lena." The Empress's tone was warm but edged with caution. "It has been too long. I found something you need to see." 2 days later, an Imperial frigate met her at the edge of neutral space. Sleek and silent, its hull gleaming like polished obsidian. Lyra stood on the docking ramp alone, no guards, no ceremony. She wore simple travel clothes, but her eyes still held the silver fire of command. "You look well," Lena said. "So do you." Lyra stepped forward. "You always show up when the galaxy starts unraveling." They walked the frigate's halls side by side. Lena handed over the data chip. Lyra studied it in silence, her expression growing graver with each passing second. "This is real," she said finally. "The heart of the First Empire isn't a myth. It's a machine, built by the ancestors of my people before the Jaran dynasty even existed. It can rewrite gravity itself, reshape star systems. If the Raiders unlock it, they'll hold the galaxy hostage," Lena finished. "Worse," Lyra said. "They'll tear it apart trying to control it. The machine was sealed for a reason. It's unstable, alive in a way we don't understand." "Who are these Raiders?" "A splinter group, former Imperial loyalists who refuse to accept my rule. They call themselves the True Crown. They believe my uncle was right to seize power, and now they think this machine will crown them as gods." Lena leaned against the viewport. "So what do we now? Go in quiet, fast, before they wake it up." Willie returned to her. "I can't do this alone. I need someone I trust, someone who sees me not as Empress but as Lyra." Lena looked away. "I'm just a scavenger. You're the woman who freed me from a tomb of ice and lies. That makes you more than just anything." The journey to the Successor belt took 3 days. They traveled in a stealth scout ship, no bigger than the Starling painted black to drink the light. The crew was small 6 Imperial agents handpicked by Lyra, all silent, all sharp. But Lena noticed how they watched their Empress not with fear but with loyalty that ran deep. They found the Raiders' base hidden inside a dead asteroid hollowed out and lined with stolen tech. Energy readings spiked from the core. The machine was active. "We go in now," Lyra said. Lena nodded. "No guns unless we have to. Noise brings collapse." They slipped through ventilation shafts and dark corridors like ghosts. The Raiders were distracted, gathered around a central chamber where a massive structure pulsed with soft blue light. It looked like a tree made of crystal roots sinking into the rock branches curling toward the ceiling. At its center floated a sphere of shifting stars. The heart. A man stood before it, tall with a scar across his face. General Dross, Lyra's uncle's right hand. He held a control rod humming with power. "It answers to me now," he declared to his followers. "The true crown shall rise." Lyra stepped into the light. "It answers to blood, not ambition." Dross whirled. "Empress, you should have stayed on your throne. I came to stop you from killing us all. You don't understand. This power is ours by right." "No," Lyra said. "It was sealed because it consumes those who wield it. My ancestors tried. They failed. The First Empire fell in a single day when the heart turned on them." Dross laughed. "Then let it consume me. I will burn bright before I fade." He plunged the rod into the machine. The chamber shook. The crystal tree flared white hot. Gravity twisted. One Raider screamed as his body stretched like taffy, then vanished into a ripple in the air. The floor buckled. Alarms wailed. Lena grabbed Lyra's arm. "We have to shut it down." How the pendant Lyra wore glowed suddenly warm against her skin. "It's tied to the old bloodline. Maybe it can calm it." Lena pushed her forward. "Then do it." Lyra ran toward the heart, dodging falling debris. Dross lunged at her, but Lena tackled him hard into a wall. They grappled, fists flying. He was strong, but Lena was faster. She drove her knee into his gut, then slammed his head against the metal grating. He went still. At the heart, Lyra pressed her pendant against the crystal. She closed her eyes and spoke words in a language older than ships or stars. The light dimmed. The shaking slowed. The sphere of stars stilled. For a moment, silence. Then the machine let out a low hum like a sigh. The roots retracted. The branches folded inward. The heart sealed itself once more into a smooth obsidian egg. "It's sleeping again," Lyra whispered. Lena joined her, breathing hard. "Will it stay that way? Only if no one wakes it again." They left the asteroid behind. The Imperial agents took the prisoners. Dross was locked in a stasis pod. His dreams of godhood ended in chains. Back aboard the frigate, Lyra stood alone on the observation deck. Lena found her there, staring at the distant stars. "Thank you," she said without turning. "You would have done the same for me." "I would have tried, but I might not have survived." Lena leaned beside her. "So what now?" I returned to my throne. "You returned to your stars," Lena nodded. "Sounds right." But Lyra turned, then her silver eyes soft. "You don't have to be alone out here. The Empire has need of people like you. Honest, brave, free." Lena smiled faintly. "I'd ruin your court with my boots and my language. Then I'll build a new kind of court, one that listens to scavengers and scientists and strangers who do the right thing for no reason at all." Lena looked away. "Maybe someday. Someday is not never." Lyra said. They stood in silence as the ship sailed through the endless dark. Two women from different worlds bound by a choice made in a cold cell long ago. The galaxy was still vast, still dangerous, but it felt a little less lonely now. Lena stayed aboard one more night. Just one, then she returned to the Starling. Her hands steady on the controls, her heart lighter than it had been in months. She set a course not away from the Empire but alongside it, watching its light grow stronger in the distance. And for the first time she wondered if home wasn't a place, but a promise, and maybe she was starting to believe in it. Rain fell on the palace gardens of Kesar Prime, soft and steady like a whispered secret. Lena stood beneath the overhang watching droplets bead on the silver leaves of the memory trees, plants that only grew where truth had been spoken aloud. She wore a simple tunic now no longer patched with scavenger's tape, but cut from fine fabric that still let her move. She kept her boots, though. Some things shouldn't change. It had been a year since she'd traded the Starling's cockpit for an office in the Imperial Palace, not because she'd lost her edge, but because she'd found something worth protecting. The peace was holding. Trade flourished. Even the Outer Rim sent delegates now not with weapons but with proposals. But Lena knew calm was never permanent. It was a choice renewed every day. That morning a courier arrived not by ship but by foot, a young woman with sunburned skin and eyes sharp as flint. She carried no weapons, only a sealed data cylinder marked with the sigil of the Silent Zone, the place where stars went quiet. She asked only for Lena. In a private chamber the girl handed over the cylinder. "My name is Nia," she said. "I come from the last free colony beyond the rim. We found something. Not a weapon, not a ruin, a signal, repeating for centuries, in a language no one understands, but it reacts when we speak Jiran." Lena's pulse quickened. We're deep in the void, past the black veil. Our ship barely made it back. The signal, it feels alive. Lena took the cylinder to Lyra. They reviewed the data together in the Empress's private study. The signal was real, rhythmic, complex, and buried within its pulses was a harmonic match to the old Jiran royal chant, the one Lyra had used to calm the heart machine. "Do you think it's them?" Lyra asked. The first once Lena shook her head. "I think it's something that knew them. Maybe waited for them. Or for someone like you, they decided to go. Not with a fleet. Not with fanfare. Just the two of them. And a single stealth vessel retrofitted with the latest shielding." Lena insisted on piloting. Lyra didn't argue. The journey took 10 days through regions no chart had named. Space grew thin here. Light bent strangely. Time felt stretched. On the 9th night, alarms chimed softly. They'd entered the signal's range. Ahead hung a structure unlike anything in known records. Not a ship, not a station. A ring of obsidian stone floating in perfect stillness. Its surface was covered in glyphs that shifted when stared at too long. At its center pulsed a soft amber light. "That's not built," Lena murmured. "It's grown." They docked carefully. The air inside was breathable warm. The walls hummed with a low vibration that resonated in their bones. No guards, no traps. Just silence and the echo of footsteps that weren't theirs. At the heart of the ring, they found a chamber open to the stars. In its center stood a pedestal holding a single crystal orb. As Lyra approached, it lit up. Images flickered inside. Jiran's cities, long-gone emperors kneeling before stars, beings of light weaving galaxies with their hands. "This is a memory vault," Lyra whispered. "But not ours. It's a gift, left for those who would listen instead of conquer." Then a voice spoke, not from speakers, from the air itself. From the stone, from their minds. "You have returned." Lyra stepped forward. "We did not know we were gone." The voice softened. "Your ancestors turned from the path. They sought power over harmony. We waited, hoping another would rise who remembered the song." Lena watched as Lyra reached out and touched the orb. Light poured into her. Not painful, not overwhelming, but deep, like roots finding water. For a moment she glowed silver from within. When it faded, she turned to Lena, tears in her eyes. "They showed me how it began. How the Jiran were meant to be stewards, not rulers. How the heart machine was never a weapon. It was a seed, meant to heal dying worlds. So what now? Now we finish what they started. They stayed 3 days in the ring. Learning. Listening. The voice, called the Watcher, taught them how to awaken dormant nodes. Hidden across the galaxy, each node could restore ecosystems, purify poisoned skies, bring dead moons back to life, but only if activated with intent, not greed. On their return they called a council not just of empires but of miners, farmers, scientists, scavengers. Lena stood beside Lyra as they revealed the truth, not as rulers but as guides. "We were wrong to hoard knowledge," Lena said to the gathered crowd. "The galaxy isn't ours to control, it's ours to care for." Many doubted. Some walked out. But others stayed, and among them were the ones who would carry the work forward. Months later, Lena stood on a barren moon once stripped bare by mining. Now green shoots pushed through the gray dust. A node hummed softly in the center, its light gentle. Beside her stood Nia, the girl from the rim, now trained as a caretaker. "You ever think you'd be planting trees on dead rocks?" Nia asked. Lena smiled. "I used to steal oxygen tanks just to breathe. Now I help worlds breathe on their own. Life's funny." Back on Kesser Prime, Lyra waited on the palace balcony. The memory trees bloomed white tonight, a sign that truth had taken root. Lena joined her. "It's working. Slowly. But yes." They watched the sky. Ships came and went not with war drums but with seeds and soil and songs. The Empire was changing into something new, something kinder. "Do you miss the starling?" Lyra asked. "Sometimes. But she's still out there. Claire's using her to ferry caretakers to new nodes. She's doing good work, so are you." Lena looked at her. "I couldn't have done any of this without you, and I would have drowned in duty without you. You remind me that leadership isn't about thrones. It's about people." A silence settled between them, warm and easy. No need for grand words. They had built something real, not with force, but with trust. One evening, Lena received a message from the Outer Rim. A small colony reported strange lights in their sky. Not hostile. Curious. They asked if the Empress would send someone who understood first contact. Lena showed the message to Lyra. "Send me," Lena said. "You're not just an advisor anymore, you know. You're a symbol, symbols. Don't fix engines or share rations with scared kids." "Exactly, that's why you're perfect." The next morning, Lena boarded a new ship, not the Starling, but something faster, quieter, painted deep blue with a silver serpent coiled along its side. They called it the Promise. As it lifted off, Lyra stood on the landing pad watching. No tears, just pride. Lena didn't look back. She didn't need to. She carried the Empress's trust in her chest like a compass. The Promise shot into the stars toward the unknown. Not to conquer, not to claim, but to listen. And somewhere in the dark, the galaxy listened back. The work would never end. Worlds would fall sick again. Fear would rise. Old wounds would ache. But now there were hands to heal them. Voices to calm the storm. Hearts that chose kindness even when it was hard. Lena set her course not toward glory but toward grace. And for the first time she knew she wasn't just surviving. She was part of something that mattered. The stars ahead shimmered not as distant fires but as friends waiting to be known. And she flew on ready, not as a scavenger, not as a hero, but as herself. Lena Cruz, who once freed a princess and in doing so freed herself. The Promise drifted through the amber rings of Silo 7, its hull glinting in the light of a dying star. Lena sat in the cockpit alone again, but not lonely. The ship hummed with quiet energy, a mix of imperial tech and scavenger ingenuity. She had just helped a small farming colony restore their water table, using a node fragment gifted by the Watcher. The work was slow, but it stuck. Like seeds in good soil, her comm chimed softly. Not an emergency, not a distress call, just a private channel. "Lyra, you're quiet lately," the Empress said, her voice warm through the static. "Just thinking," Lena replied, "about how far we've come, about how much further there is to go." "You sound tired." "Not tired. Full. Like after a good meal. Like after real talk," Lyra laughed softly. "I miss your voice in the halls. You could always come out here. The stars are better when shared. I might, soon. There's something I need to show you. Not in a message. Not on a screen. In person." Lena frowned. "Trouble, no. The opposite. Hope. Real hope. But I can't explain it yet. Just keep your schedule open next cycle." Lena smiled. "I always do." She ended the call and leaned back. The galaxy felt different now. Not safer exactly, but more connected, like threads pulled taut between worlds, and she and Lyra were part of the weave. 3 days later, a signal blinked on her long-range scanner. Not Imperial. Not civilian. Unknown origin. It pulsed in the same rhythm as the Watcher's ring, but fainter, weaker, like a heartbeat fading. Lena adjusted course. Curiosity was a habit she couldn't quit. She found the source near a collapsed nebula, a derelict vessel half swallowed by cosmic dust. Its design was ancient smooth curves, no weapons, no markings. It looked more like a seed than a ship. She docked carefully. Inside, the air was stale but breathable. The corridors glowed with soft bioluminescence. No bodies, no signs of violence, just silence and the faint hum of dormant systems. At the center, she found a chamber. In it floated a single pod made of the same obsidian as the ring. Inside lay a being, tall, slender skin like polished moonstone. Silver hair fanned around her head. Her eyes were closed, but her chest rose and fell slowly. Alive. Sleeping. Lena's breath caught. She looked like Lyra, not identical, but of the same bloodline. Older, deeper. As if sensing her presence, the woman's eyes opened. Not startled. Not afraid. Calm as deep water. "You are not of the first line," the woman said, her voice like wind through crystal. "I'm Lena Cruz, a friend of Empress Lyra Voss." The woman sat up slowly. "Then you are welcome. I am Alara, last of the original caretakers. I have slept long." Lena helped her from the pod. Alara moved with the grace of someone who knew the shape of time. She explained that her ship had been damaged during the Great Silence, the time when the Geron turned from harmony to conquest. She'd put herself in stasis, hoping someone worthy would find her. "I felt the nodes awaken. I heard the song return. So I woke." Lena contacted Lyra immediately. The Empress's face lit with awe when she saw Alara. "You're real," she whispered. "We were never gone, only waiting." Alara came aboard the Promise. She spoke little, but her presence filled the ship like starlight. She showed Lena how to read the deeper layers of the node signals, how to sense a world's pain before it showed on the surface. She taught her that healing wasn't just fixing, it was listening. Together they visited 3 more dying worlds. On each, Alara placed her hands on the soil and sang in a language without words. Life returned, not in a rush, but in a sigh. Flowers bloomed where ash had lain. Rivers remembered their paths. Lena watched in wonder. "You're not using tech. You're using yourself. We are part of the whole," she said. "To heal the world, you must let it heal you." Back on Kesser Prime, Lyra met them at the landing pad. She and Alara embraced like kin separated by centuries. That night, they held a small ceremony in the memory garden. No crowds, no speeches. Just truth spoken under open sky. Alara placed a hand on Lyra's forehead and one on Lena's. "You two have done what my people thought impossible. You turned the Empire toward the light not by force but by choice. For that, the old ones thank you." The next morning, Alara vanished. Her ship was gone. Only a single white flower remained on the palace steps. Lyra picked it up. "She's not gone. Just moving on. Her work here is done." Lena stayed. She had work too. But that evening, Lyra led her to a hidden wing of the palace. Behind a door marked only with a serpent sigil lay a chamber filled with light. In its center floated a new node, larger, brighter than any before. It pulsed in time with Lena's heartbeat. "This is yours," Lyra said. "The Watcher and Alara left it. They say you're ready. For what? To lead the caretakers. Not as a title. As a calling. You've walked every path. Scavenger, rescuer, advisor. Now healer." Lena stared at the node. "I don't know if I can." "You already do. You just didn't have a name for it." Lena reached out. The node warmed under her touch. Images flooded her. Not of war or power, but of roots reaching deep, of hands planting seeds, of children laughing on worlds once dead. She saw herself not alone, but surrounded by others like her. Miners turned gardeners, soldiers turned teachers, pirates turned protectors. "This is the future," she whispered. "Yes," Lyra said, "and it starts with you." Lena didn't accept the role that night. She thought for 3 days, walking the palace gardens, sleeping under the stars. On the 4th morning, she returned to the chamber. "I'll do it, but not from here. Not from a throne. I'll travel, teach, connect. The caretakers need to be everywhere, not just in the capital." Lyra smiled. "That's exactly what I hoped you'd say. They built a new network, not of fleets, but of people." Lena trained the first group herself. Naya from the Rim, a former raider named Joss, a botanist from Viridian Station. They called themselves the Root. Not to rule, to grow. Months passed. Lena flew from world to world, sometimes with Lyra, often alone. She carried no weapons, only tools and seeds and stories. She fixed engines and healed soil and sat with elders who remembered the dark times. She listened more than she spoke. One evening on a moon covered in blue grass, she received a message, a new signal. Not from the Watcher, not from Alara, from beyond the known edge, faint but clear, a question in the old tongue. "Are you there?" Lena looked at the stars. Then she opened a channel. "Yes," she said. "We're here. And we're listening." The reply came fast. "Then come, there is much to heal." She set a course not back to Kesser Prime but outward past the black veil, past the silent zone into the true unknown. Lyra would understand. She always did. As the promise leapt into warp, Lena felt no fear, only purpose. She wasn't the girl who stole oxygen anymore. She wasn't just the woman who freed a princess. She was something more, a bridge, a beginning. And somewhere behind her, the galaxy bloomed in her absence. The work would never end, but now it had roots. And roots could hold against any storm. Lena flew on not to conquer the dark, but to bring it light one world at a time. And in her wake, life returned not because she demanded it, but because she believed it could.